There we go. Maureen, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
Thank you for rescheduling. For people who don't realize, I've misinterpreted the time zones, and you very kindly made yourself available for this chat today.
Sure. There's no time, right? Holy Spirit knows what time it is. What time is it?
Awesome. So, very nice spot that you're in. I recognize the background from your morning videos, doing the lessons for us, which I've been really enjoying. I found listening to one the other day at work whilst using a hammer and a chisel wasn't necessarily compatible because it was a bit soporific and the sound of your voice. And I was like, oh, I need to pay attention to what I'm doing with this.
What do you do for work?
Tyler.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
work with
that's
sort of
great.
stone, and it's very similar to music in terms of refinement through repetition and symmetry
Yeah.
and maths and divisions and yes.
That's beautiful. My dad started out as a tiler and then he became an electrician, but yeah, I
Uh,
think he
uh,
always had that in him because in his backyard as he got older, he would make these little like mosaic altars around and yeah, yeah, it's nice.
well, I can do it on autopilot now, so it enables me to sort of listen to 5 or 6 hours of course material most days.
Isn't that nice how you got set up that way? Well done.
Yeah, beautiful. So today I've had like Tam and Bob, Dr. Bob and Judy have been revisiting some of their stuff from the foundation, and watched one of yours. I've watched some Bruce Rules or listened. I can't watch. Yeah, and I'm also going through psychotherapy and Song of Prayer pamphlets at the moment as well, just on the audio book. So it's just I look around and I've done all of this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, right, I've been doing.
That's funny. That's really good. That's great. Yeah.
And have you done your Miracles 365 community this morning? You've been up bright and early doing that with everybody?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. We're on lesson 46 for one group. Uh, the love of God. And something about the love of God. You're not going to quiz me, are you? Because I will definitely.
No, no, I don't
Something
go
about
into that.
forgiveness. We have to practice it 5 times. I've done it 1.5 times so far.
Well, it made me laugh the other day because you were going, you were basically saying like, don't worry, it's not too much of a thing at the moment. All we've got to do is like do the lesson in the morning, do the lesson at night, then do the repetitions on the hour, and then think about it as often as you can in between.
I know they tricked us into it. Like, this will be easy. It's like a Tom Sawyer thing. You just paint the whole fence. It's fine.
And then I was listening to Bruce Rawls and Gary Renard the other day talking about like the switch from the little willingness to like when you've actually finished the workbook and it says, right, now you've got to really get on with it and apply yourself and get down to it. It's like, oh, you've tricked us. What happened to the little willingness?
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about the 365 community, please, so people who don't know.
Well, sure. So I had been studying A Course in Miracles for a while and really loving the workbooks. And I got invited to do some talks at the Bodhi Spiritual Center in Chicago. So I had this series of talks to do, and I was actually taking a business class at the time. And it said, like, if you want to add more value when someone invites you to do something, think about adding more value. And I was like, what could add more value? So I decided, I think it was inspired by the Holy Spirit, that I was going to do 21 days of miracles. And so, yeah, that was probably definitely my decision. I was like, I'm going to do 21 days and everybody will pay $1 a day and we'll get on a conference call. And we had like 100 people on it. And I took them through the first 21 days and they wanted more, and so by, day 15, 16, 17, there's like, let's go the distance, like, let's do the whole round. And I was like, I am not getting up. You know, at the time, I think it was 6:45. Now it's 5:45. So we have a couple calls. But I knew enough to ask the Holy Spirit, like, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to get up 365 days and, try and move these people through? Because I didn't do it in 365 days. I did it in like 7 years. I was very reluctant, and I sat for a while on lots of different, and like it's shared, I was going through practitioner training. There was other things that I was doing, but I didn't get through it in 365 days. So the Holy Spirit just said simply, do you have other plans? And I was like, dang, I do not.
You
And
got me.
yeah, and I went to my daughter and I was like, there's like these people that think I'm going to get up every morning and get them across the finish line, 365 days. And she was like, yeah, Mom, you're going to do it. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. Like maybe even one or two. And she's like, no, you're going to do it, Mom. You're going to do it for every single one of them. And I was like, geez, man, like I had been a life coach for a little while, but I never had it turned on me that way. And I was like, okay, I will do this. So, and of course, we love it. We're like moths to flames. Like, why would I fight that? Why would I not want to do that? So I don't think it was that I didn't want to do it. I just didn't think I was capable of doing it. And so it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years.
Wow.
And many, many, many rounds, because we went from 1 call to 2 calls to 3 calls to a call in Ireland. So we have like 4 calls right now going every day. And it's also been an amazing place, I was sharing with you, for people to kind of cut their teeth as teachers. I know the Course says we're all teachers, but like, to actually actively step into the role of facilitator. And boy, doesn't that bring you more lessons? You think you know it so you can teach it, and then you start to teach it, and then you realize a whole new set of ego classrooms. So so we have some, so I think it's a really wonderful place to practice in community, because we discover, apply, and embody.
Yeah,
Like
I
we
love those 4 principles. Yeah, that really spoke to me
yeah
when I read those.
yeah and we didn't always do that. Like when I first was leading it, I would just read it and I'd be like, it says to meditate, so go ahead and do that on your own. And like, see you later, bye. So I didn't, it wasn't almost like till 3 years in where I was like, oh my God, like we're supposed to be doing this together. It's like the most clueless person in this role. And so then it became more of an embodiment, and I always love the discussion, because again, I come from 12-step where it is, a discussion, talk about how this disease applies to your life, or how you're navigating it. And so how these spiritual principles apply to your life and how you're navigating it. Otherwise, it's just theory. And so the storytelling aspect of it and the confessional part of it, especially for teachers, I think is a necessity.
Absolutely, because as well, I mean, once we can disown the story, our backstory, and be able to sort of talk about it in a way that we're not invested in the identity of it, and just sort of recount it almost from, oh yeah, right, okay, so what happened to me, and not be defined by the steps that have happened in the past that get us to where we are. I think that cutting that cord really helps us to be ourselves in the moment as we are now.
Well, I think it's an ego buster.
Mm-hmm.
To tell your truth, your whole truth, and nothing but your truth, without, because the ego will be like, you're not going to tell that one, are you?
Yeah. Oh,
You're
God,
not going to disclose that. And I've felt that way many of times when I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to tell this story, but that is the one that is most applicable to the theory. And I share it, and then it's helpful. And so I encourage teachers to share their experience, strength, and hope while teaching A Course in Miracles.
That's our qualification, though, isn't it? Our experience.
Yeah, I mean, that is it. You know what I mean? Like, we come from all different places, from all religions and from no religion, and each of us only has our experience.
Mm.
And so if you don't use your experience, you're teaching from, from what?
And then it's got a different frequency, because this has been a topic of conversation in some of the other podcasts. Is like what I think of as Danica Patrick, who I really love. One day she asked one of our guests, "Do you think truth's got a frequency?" And once I heard her say that, I was like, "Oh, right, okay." As a musician, if I'm watching somebody sing, if they're not singing from the heart, I know it.
Absolutely.
As an actor, is an
Yeah.
actor just got a script going up, or they go, oh, okay, I get this, chuck the script.
Yeah, absolutely. I I I won't, I feel like I'm clairaudient, but I feel like everyone is clairaudient, but
Mm.
you can hear the truth.
Mm.
And you can hear the nervous giggle, and you can hear the white lies, and you can hear the static, and you can hear you can hear everything if you're willing to hear it. You can hear everything, which can be a bit unnerving because you hear the truth beneath the river of words. you know and and sometimes you just have to like go, okay, like I hear what you're saying, but I also hear what you're actually saying. And I'm going to let you sit with what you think you're saying for a while because I trust my brother who's one with me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, finding that role for yourself as a teacher, it is, I think it's good to have the humility and to sort of question, you don't want somebody just diving straight in going, oh yeah, I've got this, I can tell you everything about this. It's, to have those aspects of yourself that take stock and check in with yourself before you know get involved in professing to something that might be beyond you. It's like it's healthy to sort of to take those steps in a very measured way.
Yeah, although I will say that when I first started teaching A Course in Miracles, I hadn't even gotten through any of it really. I was just absorbing it, and I was sharing it with friends. And I had been running writers groups and 12-step groups in my house, and I was talking to my friend about this book, A Course in Miracles, and it said this and it said this, and she was like, "Whoa." And she's like, can you can you put a group together for that? And I was like, why not? I had no clue. I had no clue. And the first group that I put together, this woman came and she goes, Maureen, a lot of people study this course. I had no idea. I was literally paying a guy $20 at a Starbucks to like tell me about this book because I didn't know anybody. It wasn't internet, there wasn't anything. And she was like, what if somebody asks you a question that you don't know? And I was like, oh, my ego got it,
Yeah.
engaged. I was like, what will I do? And then I started watching all of these like Ken Wapnick videos and, and then I was like really thinking I should know this. But what I didn't know at the time to say was, I will say, I don't know.
Yay.
Take it to the Holy Spirit, of course.
Yeah.
Like that's what you will do because I don't know. Um, when I finally found that it was after a couple of years of teaching when I stopped teaching and I let the Holy Spirit teach. And I was like, damn, the Holy Spirit's a really good teacher. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to see graphs. I don't have to watch any fucking videos. I can just show up and open the book and let the Holy Spirit teach. And that's all I have to do.
Wow.
Right? I mean, but if I had known that, I would have saved myself some time, but it was the perfect lesson. And there's, been about a billion more since then.
A lot of lessons, though, rely on us experiencing the counterpoint in terms of the long game, though, don't they? So, in order to learn the lesson, to defer to the Holy Spirit, then the way we learn that lesson with genuine depth and meaning is to have learned the flip side of being without the Holy Spirit or without the Holy Spirit in your awareness.
Yeah, it seems like we're at that space in evolution where we're still more or less our strongest classrooms come through a little pain.
Mm.
But I do believe that, I have the story of the popcorn and the sunflower seed. and they are on the farmer's wife's counter, and she sees them and she says, "There's greatness within you." And then she takes one and she throws it into the hot oil, and that's a popcorn, and it's like, mother of God, and it explodes into popcorn, and it fulfills its, dharma, its destiny to be this delicious snack. And then there's the sunflower seed she presses to the soil. Now, they're both go to the dark night of the soul, right? But the sunflower seed comes up so gracefully. If you've ever watched slow motion sunflower seed rise out of the soil, it looks like it's in prayer, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have to, if we stay steady in our practice of spiritual practices, the classrooms become less and less and less painful, right? You and I are doing that webinar for Foundation of Inner Peace, and on laughter, and I really feel like the more you study a course in miracles, the funnier it gets. Like this, the more you laugh, and the more,
Absolutely.
like, I do feel like, though some of the classrooms feel like they are painful, there's also, we can be joyful learners as well. I'm invested in being a joyful learner. Haven't mastered that, but I would really like that. Yes.
Yeah, I was speaking to my friend actually who bought me my copy of A Course in Miracles, and he'd listened to, lucky to do a Miracle Voices podcast with Matt and Tam in July. And I saw him like a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, dude, you really shared a lot in that, didn't you? You shared everything. And I was just like, yeah, I did, And I'd come from a background with my dad being like a drug dealer and a drug user and a heroin addict and in and out of prison. And there was a lot in the conversation in the classroom between my dad and myself, which was about keeping everything absolutely quiet, silent. There was like, they're out there, they'll get us. We got to keep batten down the hatches. And then as a child, where you go through that, it's a very natural stage, isn't there, where you defer to your parents. You're born, you have to defer to your parents for a number of years, and to the point where they tell you what stuff is, they tell you if something's hot or cold, or you look at them to see if it's okay to interact with the stranger. So there's a huge phase in our evolution when we do naturally defer to somebody, to get our parents, to get the information we need.
Right.
And then obviously then our identities are completely entwined with our parents as well, because as you know, being a mum, sort of and obviously being an adult, there's a phase in our evolution where we need to kick back. I often say to somebody, say, like, the easiest way I find to put it is, say, if your parents wore white tight clothing, guaranteed during your teenage years you're going to wear baggy black clothing because you
Yeah.
need that polar shift to go all the way opposite. They were over there, so you need to go over here. And then once you've done that as a natural kickback, then you sort of, the needle comes back and you find where you are in the middle. And in terms of that identity that was connected to my dad with what he was doing, and the senses of guilt by association and all this kind of stuff, that was a really like heavy duty classroom. That relationship was a lot to get through.
Right.
And the consequences and the effects on me as like a sensitive little kid, it took a lot to clear that debris and the shock waves, that still existed with anxiety and anticipation. When terrible stuff's happened, you
Yeah.
sense that it could happen again. And
Right.
and I'd find, like, we could be talking now, and I feel like I'm completely relaxed, and I realise that I'm stiff as a board, and I sort of, oh, and then not only there, it's like, oh, and not only that, oh, and that's how far away peace was from me, and I didn't realise, yes, I'm at peace, like that. So those classrooms, but again, I suppose coming back to the point of like the experience of the counterpoint, now peace is just so much more tangible, and because it's got had the opposite for me to measure it by, now it's like, oh wow, you know, I love peace. So yeah, I
Mhm.
love peace. I love that feeling of going,
Mhm. Mhm.
ah, and simple peace, you know, just
Mhm.
like walking
Yeah.
in nature, watching the clouds. You know, I watch the clouds most mornings, the cup of coffee when I'm getting ready to go out, just like, what's going on in the sky today, you know? And um, I think it's really important. And a lot of people I know who are very, very active and busy. In fact, I'm working for a chap at the moment, and bless him, he can't sit still. And I think, you know, you can't find the value in inactivity. And there is a huge amount of value in inactivity.
Yeah, but we're not, we were saying earlier is we're not, well, it doesn't really matter what the world says or does, but I suppose in the beginning, when you are forming your beliefs, that you do model what is shown to you. And that's why it's so amazing that, like, it's done unto you as you believe. And so, like, to begin to break out of those confines of beliefs that we inherited and just regurgitate
Mhm.
and start to question, like, I when I'm listening to you, I'm like, yeah, I can hear that. And I can hear too that though the stimuli is gone, there's still that opportunity for like PTSD almost, right?
Yeah,
Where
oh God,
like
yeah.
the vibration of it. And if sick is normal, then normal is sick. And then you stay in that, you continue to perpetuate that state because that's what feels like love, and that's what feels like home, and that's what feels like normal. And to begin to question that and to begin to build a tolerance for peace, yeah, that is a coming of age in regards to spirituality. And I think most of us come to spirituality because we are running down the street with our hair on fire. And we finally go, this is not working anymore. And not anymore. This has never worked. And I'm finally aware of the fact that I have a choice. And the Course in Miracles tells us we can choose again, and we can choose again, and we can choose again. And there's no limit to the number of choices. And so even as we continue to recalibrate ourselves towards peace, and it's not it's, I know it says it's all peace or no peace, but we have these glimpses of peace, and then the glimpses become longer, and then they become
Yeah,
longer, and maybe
yeah.
lose our tolerance for those agitations. And
Mm,
that's why we are, I think, in the 12-step community, they tell you early on that you can't afford grievances, that it will cause you to want to self-medicate. And so that's why the program is based on forgiveness.
mm,
And the same with the Course in Miracles, that we can't afford it. We don't have the money in the bank for grievances. We just can't afford it any longer.
mm.
We recognize how much it costs for us, and we just don't have the money for it, or the breath for it, or the time for it. So,
And
yeah.
interesting, you know, like say from the Holy Spirit's point of view, I was talking to my wife yesterday, or maybe even this morning actually, about, you know, a metaphor for how whatever the problem is, it's always the same answer with the Holy Spirit of just love and forgiveness. And we were talking about, say, like if a little kid came running in going, oh, I've banged my hand. And it's like, oh, have you come here? Then, you know, oh, and love and, you know, kindness. And then they go out and they come in, oh, I've banged my elbow. Oh, have you come here? Oh, I've banged my knee. Whatever it is, it's the same answer, which is just love, kindness, and forgiveness. And we know in the flip side, the ego would try and present us that the world is full of problems. But you know, you've referenced Ken, the beautiful Ken, and he will say that we know from the course that there's just one problem. All my problems have been solved. I could see peace instead of this.
Yeah, the problem is we think there's a problem. When you were saying I banged my knee, I banged my elbow, I was thinking I banged my boss. Oh no. And I was like, oh, just love and forgiveness. Come here. Yeah, it's the problem is we think it's a problem. The
Yeah.
problem is we're so addicted to guilt and shame. I mean, yeah, it's startling.
But
Yeah.
do you think that comes back to this thing of being able to stand on the doorstep and look at the sky? Because if you're meant if you're so accustomed to the firework display going off in your brain and the neurons and the dopamine and the serotonin and the this and the that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people that I see that function like that, I look at them and I think you don't know how to how to find the value in just the absence of all of that.
Yes, the world is an echo for me. And so I don't really see that much anymore. I just, and those people who have that extra grace required is what I call it,
Mhm.
just extra grace required energy. Um, is, in A Course in Miracles, it says like, you can't get what you don't have, and that you get to accept this first. So I get to accept this first. And sometimes in my acceptance of this, I just say, yeah, I don't have the time or energy for that particular story. I'm not here to heal anybody. You know what I mean? Like, if you're ready to experience your audacious nature, then sit on close to me. But if you are here expecting that someone's going to heal you or fix you, that's not going to happen.
Mm.
You got to do your own work.
Mm.
I can't do that work for you. Nobody's going to carry you past the threshold.
Mm.
And that is a very uncomfortable idea for a lot of people in regards to spiritual teachers and regards to spiritual teaching, is I just want to suck off your fumes. You're not going to get that far with that.
Mm.
You know, I definitely did that in the beginning of my own spiritual process. Was I just, and you probably did too. Most people do. They go
Yeah.
around, buy every book, watch every video, just like suck off the fumes of everybody else. And then eventually it's like, you got to shut that down.
Mm.
You just got to do your own work.
Mm.
I remember when I first met Marianne Williamson, I was a young practitioner. Maybe not be the best flattering story for her, so I apologize if it's offensive in any way, shape, or form. But I was this young practitioner and I was so thirsty and I was sucking off her fumes and I was like, buy the ticket, get the book, go to the workshop. And I'm sitting there with my other friends who are looking for the same thing. Like, please fix us because we don't want to do the work in some ways.
Mhm.
And I remember I raised my hand and I was like, could you tell us what your spiritual practice is? She was like, what? She like looked around the whole room. What? How could you ask such a question? And the whole room seemed to turn to me like, yeah, how could you ask such a question? And I was like, oh shit. Like, I don't know. I mean, look, if I had known really what her total gig was, like I would have looked in the back of the book and found what her practice was. But apparently, like, I don't know why she was so upset by it. But I remember I leaned into my friend and I was like, and my friend said to me, she said, I was going to ask the same question. I said, I wish you had. And but when I sat after many years with the Holy Spirit about like what was that moment, because it was like this cringy and the awkward moment where I felt like I'm a big old dummy, and the Holy Spirit was like, you're trying to bake your bread with her recipe.
Right.
And so someone's going to curse again. I'm trying not to curse.
I
You're
don't
trying to bake, your spiritual bread from someone else's recipe. You got to go inside. You got to go to your own Holy Spirit and not ask, what's your recipe? What's your map? It's like, you already have it. You have it. So just do what is yours to do and stop trying to look over and cheat off somebody else's test. It's not going to get you there.
It is evolutionary, though, isn't it? I mean, if it also, it sounds like your motivation wasn't what it was perceived to be.
Well, it was, I mean, I can definitely, I could definitely hear in that my wanting a shortcut to
Mm.
the work.
Hmm.
Like, just give me a shortcut. I just want to be there already. And it's like, you know what, you're not going to microwave this. You're going to have to get up 365 days and you're going to have to do that many, 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 many days. And you don't want to skip that because that is where the erosion happens. And it's a beautiful thing to be in your
Yeah. Wow.
own
Wow. Yeah. Good point.
pocket.
That will cement the energetic signature. So we
Yeah,
both we
sure.
both we're both involved in creativity and music, and I know you do acting. And one of the things that I asked you about talking today was a quote that you said the other day on YouTube, how we move in our creativity. And I just found so much to engage with in that small sentence in my own mind, my own interpretation of information and colouring in details to something that could essentially be like a black and white outline to in terms of the overall picture. And yeah, I know that I'm motivated by the book The Prophet, obviously, by Khalil Gibran.
Yeah.
The way he talks that work is love made visible.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and he says, if you can't make a loaf of bread without love, basically don't bother, because it'll only feed half of somebody's hunger rather than completely sate their hunger. And he gives us a few options on that metaphor. But that phrase, work is love made visible, is quite an important part of my vocabulary. And music as well is so stark and bare in terms of the directness between listener and creator, that there tends to be you can't hide your intent, you can't hide your energetic signature. It's not necessarily specific to music, but obviously because that's something that I specialize in, it's something that's on my radar. And we have like a very powerful song called Absent Friends in the group Warm Rain that I'm in. And it's like broaching a topic that's just so sensitive, it's so serious in a sense. You couldn't talk about it offhand, you couldn't come at it in an unqualified way, because essentially the words, although they're like symbols and they create a picture that points to the meaning. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually the sound of the intention of the voice, and then the music, which is like a substrate and a platform for that voice. And the guitar player, when we first wrote this song, it was about 4 minutes long. And then we went into rehearsals and we just started going round and round and round with this song. And the guitar player came up with like a 4 minute, it's not a solo, but he plays lead guitar for 4 minutes. He turned it into an 8 minute song because he took the baton of like what I was saying lyrically, emotionally with my voice, and he took that from me and articulated it with the various melodies that he plays on the guitar. And again, this is the one that we finish all of our concerts with normally. And, I've had so many people literally, say this is their favorite song of all time. And you get loads of tough guys in the room all watching us. And then they're like, I've just got to pop outside because, they so, and then they come up to me later and sort of look around and go, oh, my mum passed away last year, or this happened, or that. And it's like, loss is a universal experience, and when we play this song, I sort of address everybody and say, look, I want you to think of somebody who's no longer with us, figuratively, like light a candle for them in your mind. And it's taken from an album which is essentially my life story kind of transposed into fiction. In fact, Marianne Williamson, I remember her quoting something where she said, fiction is the lie where we get to tell the truth. It wasn't her quotation, but it stuck with me. And in the process of this album that Absent Friends is in, this is about somebody finding resolution to a physical presence being taken from their life, but the energetic signature of that being still being available to them, and the process that they have to go through of grieving and loss to actually come to that understanding where they can go, okay, this person isn't here anymore, but their energy is still with me, And thank you. Yeah. So Absent Friends is a bit like it's like a wrecking ball into the third eye. It's like you can't handle, like I say, you can't handle that topic without being authentic, because someone's just going to go, bullshit, bullshit, you're not singing that from the heart. And I
Mm,
think it's probably a good way to get the conversation rolling in terms of how you feel about intent with the human voice. It doesn't, singing is like in its origin, I guess.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, in the course it says like come with wholly empty hands into your God. And that when you're creating like the flower creates the scent, like the sun creates the light, like your the most holy expression is one with no conditions. So like when you express that song, though you might make grown men cry, you don't set out to do that. You set out to tell the truth and express from your soul what needs to be expressed, because that's why it's a mutual healing. And
Mm,
so you just actually sort of getting, as they say, our bloated nothingness out of the way, so that the song that wants to be sung in the way that it wants to be sung through you can come. And it, I wouldn't be surprised if your songs come effortlessly that way. You know what I mean? Like that you don't have to noodle around too much, although it is fun to do that. But in regards to creating something good and beautiful and holy, I think the idea is to make sure that God's fingerprints are still on it.
wow, love that.
Right? I mean, so it's like you don't have to say, look what I did or look what
No,
I did. It's just like,
no.
I get to carry this water for God. I
Mm,
get to sing this song for God. And I know that can sound hokey and like being like a zealot, but really, it's not. It's like
mm,
we all get to do that. It's all God, so it's just, and when we get to do that, we do get to experience that genius, and that genius that is most helpful in that moment.
mm.
And then we get to live into that idea that I'm here only to be truly helpful. Okay, you're not here to make money, or you're not here to make friends, influence people. No, I'm really just here to be truly helpful. After that, all else is given. So yeah, so I do feel like sometimes it's really hard to cull back those other agendas. When I was in Los Angeles, I think I started acting because I had so much angst to be expressed. My mom had died when I was younger, and it was just like, brush your teeth, get your sandwich, and go to school. Like there was no therapy whatsoever. And so when I think I almost came to acting as a way to purge those demons, you
Sure.
know? And so, and once I found that I could do that, and then also get paid for it and have people applause, like my ego was like, yeah, this is for me. And then like ended up getting into the industry, like I booked my third national commercial. So it was like the money gods. And I had no idea that I could have the consciousness to, and I was at the time, it was like, like you, I was an early reader of like Louise Hay and these other metaphysical ideas of healing your mind of lack and scarcity. um and then I began to travel in a group of artists and creators who taught me what I didn't know was that this was going to be hard. I just thought this will be easy and the rain, money gods will rain on me, because I didn't know. I just figured that's what it looks like when you're an actor. And then I began to travel with other actors and absorb the mass conscious agreement of actors are poor, or you hardly work, and hear those stories.
Right.
And then I didn't work for like 2 years. And then I had to reassess what I believed through metaphysical principles. And so I've I won't say I've been blessed to make a living at what I love to do, because everybody can make a living at what they love. If you are doing what is most helpful and joyful, you will be compensated. There's no way not to be compensated. But to recognize that you're not doing this for the compensation, that's where I think you get to get really clean with it, because then the music, then the stories, then everything really just can't but hit the bullseye, and it doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of things, like, is it one person or is it a billion people? It doesn't matter, right? If it's one person, it's holy. If it's a billion people, it's holy, so, like, to reevaluate what creativity is, and then what we've made of it is, we talked about this when we first started, was, that the element of competition is absolutely based on scarcity. And so we get into this idea of, competition, and it's ridiculous. Nature doesn't compete with itself, and so, I mean, I was playing pickleball the other day with a group of people who were very competitive, to the point where I was like saying to the Holy Spirit, like, I'm just gonna, like, let them win, because not that I had a chance against them not winning. They were really good, but they were like angry, and I was like, I'm gonna get hurt here. And I was thinking, I'm never gonna play pickleball again. And then, like, the Holy Spirit was like, yes, you are. You're going to make peace with the fact that people are competitive, and that is okay.
Wow.
That is something outside of God. That is an aspect of, if it is, then it is holy. And so I've been sort of just recently on the cusp of this sort of healing, this idea of because other people have said to me, competition makes me be a better person. And I never really kind of saw it that way. It always made me feel scared, like, so I think there's something that I don't know yet about competition that I'm actively in a classroom with.
Interesting, because we had a conversation, my wife and I, yesterday, and we were talking, again, it might have been this morning. It was at some point in the illusory intervals of linear time, but it was very recent, and we were talking about, I enjoy watching, like, the athletics or the Olympics when they're on, and they have PB, personal best, comes up. So they might say, like, Maureen's just run 100 meters in 10 seconds, and she's won the race by 1 second, but she's beaten her personal best by 1.3 seconds. And when you look at the athlete, when they zoom in on them afterwards, and the athlete's looking up at the screen waiting to see, and they see that they've beaten their own personal best, in a sense, that can sort of dissolve the notion of competition, because it's about identifying a space to grow into. And I use this as something, as like a way of translating a potentially negative experience or quality or thought into positive. So I might, so I might recognize something. And basically, that, ended up sort of saying to people, growth is your friend. This stuff, as soon as you identify something you're either not good at, or you're only so far down the road with it, instead of going, oh my God, I'm not very good at that. Oh God, I'm only there with that. You go, brilliant. Right. I'm up to like 7 out of 10 on that. So there's 3 spaces that I can move forwards with that issue with, fantastic, because I'm not perfect, no one's perfect. So it's like, what you're looking for, you're looking for the place to grow into, to expand, to progress, to improve upon your personal best.
Yes. I think it was a 6-minute mile back in the day that hadn't been broken. Maybe it was a 4-minute mile, 5-minute mile. I don't remember what it was, but it was ever that time that was not broken. And because the theory was, if you ran that fast, you would die. And then Roger Bannister broke the record.
Yeah.
And then he held the record for like 3 months before somebody else broke and someone else broke it and broke it.
Wow.
And so it was like, like it's interesting to think about competition in that way, or beating your personal best as a way of busting through limited mass conscious agreements. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
if it wasn't for those things, we'd still be banging rocks together in a cave.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for, curiosity and innovation and wanting to see what's not here yet. I mean, that is an absolute seed in creativity. And when we talk about intention, like sometimes I'll think about inner tension, and that those inner tensions are actually those postcards from the future that you're supposed to bring forth,
Mhm.
so so not to fear them and
Mhm.
not to make them special, but just to be with them and be with them with the Holy Spirit, and say, like, there's this intention I have of, singing these songs, and I'm scared, but my soul wants to do that. And if it's holy and if it's helpful, like, let me not harm myself in the making of this dream.
That's so cool. And also, I'll tell you what that makes me think of is, translating that same principle onto the greatest scale of all, which is like when I say to people about separation itself, how to put a positive spin on the entire foundation of ego thought, to say this idea of separation from God. Without that notion, without that motivation to act upon that thought of experiencing separation, what does separation teach you? It doesn't just teach you what separation is, it also teaches you what unity is, doesn't it? In terms of like the dualistic elements of the existence we have here. I remember Alan Watts was brilliant for saying all this stuff. He'd sort of say, how do you know what up is without down? How do you know what day is without night? How do you know what forward is? So we require dual aspects in order for definition, not just the act of definition, but for the actual meaning that comes from definition. And if as a collective, so let's say there's 8 billion of us who all sort of say, right, I'm going to, not necessarily with the negative connotation of right, let's all go and hide from God, but more like, right, let's all go and experience what it's like to be without God. I'll go and experience it in this context. You do it like that, you do it like that, you do it like that. And together we'll look at it from all these different angles, and then we'll get the whole picture as a team, as one team. And then we can forget it all and get back to unity and stop
Mhm.
defining everything and having concepts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's very interesting. I mean, what I think is like, one of the bravest things you'll ever do is question God, and one of the most beautiful things you'll ever do is return to your trust in God. And so, like, when you say, like, you'll bang your elbow and there's like, come on, like we give ourselves the opportunity to return, and the return is so beautiful.
Mm.
So, it's almost like God, breathes us out into this experience, and we lose ourselves and we get lost and we forget that we're the exhale of God, and then we get sucked back in. And it's that return that's like, and there's no time. So it's, for God is nothing. For us, it seems like the most dramatic thing in the world to go out and live untethered, and or what appears to be untethered in the ebb and flow and give and take and up and down of the dream. But we are assured of that inhale, and whether we don't even have to do anything to return to God. Like, there's no way that we can stay separate,
Like Bruce Rawls was saying to me the other day about the word inevitability and what it means to him, and how it used to have like oh my God, inevitability, until he went, oh, inevitability, great,
Yes.
And I was working with a chap a while back, and he said to me, just in passing, we were talking about something, he said, you how did he word it? You recognize the absence of something by the presence of something else, something like that. But whatever it was, I was just like, hold on a minute, hold on just a minute, let me get my phone. I opened out my phone. What did you say then? Type that down, even though maybe I can't recall it now. But I understood, that feeling of like, right, that's, something through
Yes.
absence. I was like, pardon? Oh, hold on a minute. That's gonna need a little while to go in, that one.
Yeah, I think like what is compassion, but like to see that the illusion of something going wrong and the compassion of recognizing it never happened, like these specific sort of elixirs that we get from this hero's journey that we're on,
Mm.
gives us the opportunity to learn to remember how to love each other. And so yeah, it's okay. It's okay, even the competition and even the separation, all of it's okay. It's all part of this silly
Yeah,
dream.
and it helps you to really take the sting out of the ego, instead of looking at the ego. I remember I had some, what was it, NLP? I went to see an NLP practitioner during my
Did you?
healing. And this lady was really, really lovely. She was German, so she was very efficient and she was quite scientific.
Mhm.
And we talked about the traumas of childhood and this sense of anxiety in my mind. And she carefully positioned it outside of me. And we had this conversation where she asked me to give it a gender and give it a name and literally create space between me and it. So I said it was female. It's called worry. And then she started asking me, as my awareness over here, questions about worry and sort of saying, does worry know how old you are? And I was like, no. And whatever I was at the time, she will tell worry that you're 42 or something. Tell worry that this, that, and sort of gave worry the statistics and the facts to say, look, he's all right now. And she walked me around in this really gentle circle where she showed me that this, what I perceived as like a party pooper, if you and I are talking now, having a nice time, and worry's going, oh, don't forget, did you lock the back door? Did this happen? Did that? And I'd be historically would have gone, oh, button it, leave me alone, kind of thing. To then reframe it and go, thank you. I realized that what you're actually doing was you were taking the role of my parent who didn't create a buffer between me and the world and reality so that my childhood could be carefree. Because
Mhm.
I've got quite a thing about like what I call a default setting. And then when kids get enough time in the family unit to just enjoy themselves, being themselves and at peace, and that default setting is like something comfortable enough so that when they move out of that environment into the world in general, whatever fluctuations they have that do this, that, or the other to them, when the dust settles, they go back to their like default setting of like, oh, this is what I remember as my vibe from my formative years. And it was very, very clever what this lady did. She didn't get me to attack this voice. And we know from Course in Miracles, you don't attack ego, you just literally observe it non-judgmentally. And just by doing that, you're saying, you're there, I'm here. And I don't think that initial freedom that I got from those first sort of bits of information 30 years ago in the course going, this voice isn't you, mate. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's still with me to this day.
Mhm.
And within the last 6 months, I'm very interested in brain waves and brain frequencies, alpha waves, beta, delta, theta, and they've all got sort of characteristics, haven't they, of like whether or not they're conducive to inspiration or to rest, or there's a state where you suggestion. So when you wake up in the morning and just before you go to sleep, that's when you're in theta, which is what hypnotists use to suggest to your subconscious mind ideas that are going to help your conscious mind. And funnily enough, we know that most of our meditations with the course are like, as soon as you get up, just before you go, that's when you make the big input. So I woke up at some point in the last 6 months, and it was I think it might have just been in the morning, getting up, and I literally had an experience where I felt like my ego hadn't woken up yet, and it was like, oh, great. And I got this. I don't even really know how it worked, but I got this perspective on the ego in almost like of it not being conscious, almost like it was a Neanderthal sort of primitive being that
Mm.
that wasn't. I was listening to a teacher recently, and they were saying it might have been Dr. Bob or someone. They were saying like the ego isn't conscious of the Holy Spirit, and I found that very arresting. I was like, that is probably what I was motioning towards, trying to articulate from this experience that I had, where my awareness went ping like that, and then I became aware of the ego awareness separately, and just saw its primitive kind of, yeah, the fact that it wasn't particularly conscious, it was just mechanistic or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it just took it again, it just sort of take all of that kind of, when we are taking it seriously, when we are driven by it, when it is the dominant sort of dialogue, and it's like, I've got to keep up with this voice, then we really have like pumped it right up to be this great big thing that we're like, oh God, right, there you go. Yeah, what was that? Okay, oh yeah, that person did that to me in 2005. Oh, and don't forget that. And it's just like you're at the mercy of it, aren't you?
Yeah.
And to just have this context, almost like what you keep referring to with the child sort of thing of like me saying, "Oh, what have you done? Oh, come here," and it's like I can adopt that sort of principle with the ego and go, "Well, oh, what is it? Oh, so and so said something nasty to. Oh, come here, let's have a cuddle." I don't
Yeah.
want to cuddle. I want to attack them. They said something nasty to me.
It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz when they're like so afraid and so driven by that fear. And then they find out there's just like a little friendly man behind a curtain, you know? And
Mm.
it's like, that's what we were afraid of? Nothing. It's literally nothing. It was just like some guy who like wanted to have a purpose for a little while and have some power. So adorable, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
so adorable. And it's a easy, I think I sort of appreciate seeing the ego as just a call for love, like a
Mm.
little trick-or-treater who's dressed like a monster and they're like, rah! But it's like, oh, you want candy? Okay, I have candy. Like it's nothing, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's just a call for love. So like you said, every answer is like, come here, let's have a cuddle, let's eat some candy.
Yeah.
That's it, you
Brilliant.
know?
Yeah. Brilliant. And we know with our course sort of learning, the reason, the method that we use to discover that we're in possession of something is the act of giving it away, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
To have all, give all to all. To the miracles that we give are the miracles that we receive. The kindness we give, we receive it, because in the act of me offering a gift of, I just say gift, but kindness to you, for example, upon reflection, be that in that immediate moment or afterwards or whatever, you get to see that you were in possession of that kindness, to be able to exhibit it and to be able to
Yeah.
manifest it. And we know
Yeah.
that it doesn't disappear, then it's left a trace on you. It stayed with me. And then, as we know, the way these things work is then you would probably be left with that energetic signature, and you might hold the door open for somebody to walk through, and then they'll go, oh, that was cool. And it's just a great big ripple of love that just goes through everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, because those calls to love are not authored by some external thing. They are a reflection of my consciousness that I'm refusing to heal until you get loud enough and I get generous enough to say, okay, now's the time. We're going to do this. And I'm going to forgive, extend love you in the disguise of me. or
Brilliant.
me in the disguise of you rather.
Yeah.
And then we get to quote unquote walk each other home, but it's just me returning home.
Mm.
And I think that's super interesting because it's so interesting that I can make a lot of blocks around, I don't got enough time, I don't got enough money, I don't really know you. All of these illusions that prevent us from just being an answer to the call to love that we are calling. Like, it's only ever myself I forgive. It's only ever myself I help. It's only ever myself I extend to. There's no one else here.
Mm.
So but yeah, I mean, on the level of forms, like in this world, absolutely, it does look like we benefited from that mutually, and you're going your way and I'm going my way. But it's, this is again just like the, skin puppets of the drama that we're playing out here for this temporary time. And
The unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between inner and outer worlds. We know that even from like a science point of view. I was explaining to somebody the other day that when you see this stuff makes its way into mainstream sports, like the soccer team in England, it's quite a long time ago now. We had like a foreign manager for the first time, and the people interested in this sport were like, oh, it should be an Englishman. And this guy got all these football players, and he said, listen, don't go out on the field today and run around and do training on how to score penalties. You're going to sit in this room, sit down, and I want you to visualize yourself scoring penalties. And it's like, well, the amount of money, the drive, in terms of the worldly sort of ticks on the list of what this sport sort of like embodies, if that thinking is showing its face at the international level where the coach is going, don't bother about running around. He's basically saying your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between inner and outer world. So if you sit there and visualize this happening, all the same pathways, all the same activity in your mind is going to occur.
absolutely, it's done unto us as we believe. So even the type of food that you put into your body, if you believe that it's healthy or if you believe if it's harmful, everything is just, again, like, has that vibration of your own beliefs.
Yes, it's
So
done unto you as you believe. That's really worth just like letting that just hang in the air for a minute, because you're right. I mean, you imbue it with the frequency, don't you? It's like again, talking to Bruce Rawls the other day, and we were talking about the quantum mechanics, and it's like, if you expect a particle, you get a particle. If you expect a wave, you get a wave.
mhm,
It's your expectation, it's your intention, it's the
mhm,
it's your
yeah,
consciousness that
yeah.
creates reality, even if on that level down there, it's like,
It's like the world is just a mirror, it's just an echo. And if we don't get what we want, we get what we are. And the wanting is the very thing that keeps it from us, because we believe that there's something that's not here. The Course says, I'm upset because I'm seeing something that's not here, or something that is not here. And it's like, it is interesting I think it's interesting to wake up to the fact that it's your hand on the script that you're writing. It's your own hand.
mm,
And God does not care if you want to write a horror movie or a romantic love song.
mhm.
It's like, you're going to be inhaled and it's going to love you. And so while you're here, how do you want to play?
Beware of the temptation to perceive yourself as unfairly treated.
Mm-hmm.
As our beautiful Dr. Ken, I'll tell you what, Ken in our household is called Ken Pacino,
Oh, really?
because for all of the regimented things that I do, like with music and work and stuff, which is all like so and so, I like to I like making soup at the weekend. It's because it's some form of freestyling where I can like open the cupboards, open the fridge,
Love soup.
and just see what's there. And it's very immediate. And it's like, I don't know what this is going to be, but by the time I'm just like, oh, right, okay, it's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
With like a regimented sort of approach to have the experience of the opposite. So my wife comes in, I've got my little Bluetooth speaker on. She's like, why is Al Pacino talking about Course in Miracles? And I was like, no, this is Ken Wapnick, and told her about it. So he's ended up being called Ken Pacino. So it's like, beware of the temptation to perceive yourself as unfairly treated.
That's really good.
At the end
Yeah.
of the game, the king and the pawn goes in the same box, etc. He always says etc., etc., etc.
Yeah. I went down to visit him for my birthday when I lived in California, when he was still alive. And I had this experience that was really funny, which is I went into this room and it was all like much older people than me. And first thing that happened was he came over to me as I was sitting there and he was talking to someone behind me and he put his hands on my shoulder and started to rub my shoulders. And I was like, oh my God, because I'd been watching it on YouTube. I'm like, Ken Wapnick is massaging my shoulder. And so he must know that I'm special.
Brilliant.
And then what happened was I turned to look at him and he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were someone else.
Wow.
It was so freaking perfect. And then again, like I thought I knew what was up with the Course in Miracles. I'd been studying, about 5 or 10, some number of years. And so I sat in this room and the talk was on the Emperor's New Clothes. And I had listened to tapes all the way down. I mean, I was so crazy and I was so like wanting to get it, And then I got there and I think I literally listened too much and I got like physically sick. But I first I was in the room and he said, who are the new students here? Like anyone who's been studying. And I was like, who are the new students? And he said, like anyone who's been studying less than 15 years. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, why are these idiots studying this book for 15 years? Like, do they not, like, what is up? Like, how dense are we? I had no idea. It was just like one weird little thing after the next. And I actually went for the whole weekend and I stayed one night and then I drove home because I was so physically ill. I had tried to rush it. I tried to microwave it. I was trying to get it so hard that I couldn't, and it was interesting. It's just interesting, but I was grateful that I got to experience that hub of people because it was very peaceful and very kind and very earnest. The Course in Miracles community was just so much more like at the time I was going to Agape. And Agape was like this big show and it was like Meg Ryan would walk in and sit next to you and like, it was like this very hip, young, awesome, and then I went there and it was like a lot of old people with blue hair and were just very, very peaceful. And I didn't understand. My vibe wasn't even at that point where I could actually sit in the room.
Wow.
I know. It's interesting to look back now, forgive myself.
And also, he couldn't go like 3 minutes. I doubt it's even 3 minutes without cracking a gag, could he? He's like always joking, that guy as well, which I
Yeah.
love. He's like absolutely got this thing in his back pocket, and all he wants to do is just joke all the time, which is like, I love that. I think
I think, I think that there are a lot of teachers are like that, I know Gary Renard, just one joke after the next. And John Mundy, actually, you'd think he was doing stand-up. And he's very funny. In fact, he used to do a character. I don't know if you knew this, but he used to do this character. I forget what the character's name was, but he would just come in and do like stand-up as this character. I know. Well, it's kind of refreshing, It's kind of
It
refreshing.
is, yeah. We need to dust off all that solemnity. We got sort of obviously the English history of like religion and stuff. And if you go to church and oh, I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy, and all the songs are like, oh no, yeah, blah, blah. And it's like, guys, come on, do we really think this is the deal? Do we really think this is how we should be going about stuff? Let's
Yeah.
Warm it up was a phrase that I like. Warm it up. Come on, raise the vibe.
It's it's pre it's pre-designed for that. Like I remember when I first started hosting groups at my house in California, like I said, we had A Course in Miracles, 12-step, and writing groups. And
Mm.
my husband said to me, I always know when the Course in Miracles is here. And I said, really, why? And he said, because you laugh a lot more.
Wow.
I know. And I was like, well, that's so interesting.
Wow.
So it's almost like pre-designed for that. In
Mm.
fact, I remember, I haven't said this in a long time, but I remember saying to early teachers, like, and if you go to A Course in Miracles group and they're not laughing, get the F out of there. Because you're taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
That and stay close to the book.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you, and you probably had this experience where like you read something and you don't really understand it and you bring it up and you start to try and figure it out. And then you just go back down to the book eventually and you read the next sentence or two and it's like, oh, that's what they meant. So
Yeah.
it's like, don't take it seriously and stay close to the book.
Yeah. And just be grateful that the book's got this propensity to present itself to you wherever you're at. It's
Yeah.
it's so much bigger than us, not in a way to feel dwarfed or intimidated, but in a way to feel comfortable that whatever you're looking for, you will
Yeah.
find it. And it'll be that same page that you've looked at for 30 years, except
Yeah.
today, the
Yeah.
information meets you where you are.
And it's interesting to study in a group because you get to see how well faceted it is, because
Mm,
I'll be reading something and I'll apply it this way to my life. Somebody else will apply it that way. Somebody else will apply it that way. It
mm,
will be the perfect lesson for this person because of this. And then it'll also be the perfect lesson for this person because of this. And
mm,
it's like, how could that be the perfect lesson for everybody?
mm,
And it always is the perfect lesson for everyone every day.
mm.
It's so well faceted. It's kind of hard to comprehend.
It is because we know it's from outside the dream. We can feel it. We can feel that this information's come from outside the dream. I was talking to I'm not sure if it was Keith Kavanagh the other day, and just sort of saying, if I hadn't have known that it was received as an inner dictation, if I hadn't have read that,
Mm-hmm.
I might have come to that conclusion. I had that sense anyway. And interestingly, Keith was like, well, that's actually your right mind, the awareness of your right mind going, hold on a minute, this is like, I recognize the energy and the qualities and the properties of this as something from above the battleground.
I actually believe that everything that's good, beautiful, and holy, like and helpful, like your song, is from outside the dream.
Mm,
And it's not just subject to this book. That
mm,
just byways, channels, um, you know, that you can bring God into this dream.
mm,
you know?
mm,
So yeah, so it's then we could also see that everything is that everything is a holy communion.
sure.
It's just deciding on, you know, is this am I making this separate and fearful, or am I recognizing it's part of the holy communion that helps to make this dream holy, helps to make this a happy dream.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's like the diffusing of sort of attack thoughts or intimidation or feeling threatened. If let's say, I'll say to people, about an ideal scenario where you could have a dinner table and you could have somebody from all these different faiths or different ethnicities saying to one another, oh, that's interesting. We use this word to describe God. Oh, right. We have a process called this. Oh, wow. And to just share that without what you do know, because if
Yeah.
you take away religion or this methodology or philosophy, and you swapped it with, say, a potato, You know, and if I said to you, oh, we call this a potato, and you were, what? You know, we call it this over here, and these people, well, we call it so. That would be ludicrous, wouldn't it? Because everybody would be able to sort of find this common ground of going, guys, come on, it's, you know, we're all from different places, we've all got different backgrounds, so therefore it's not a particularly difficult sum or equation to go, we're all going to call this something different, we're going to come at it from another angle. And I think that's a really great thing about A Course in Miracles, is it just says this is a way. This is a way. Well, right, you know, there's no like the way. And that was, like I was explaining to you earlier, that was what was off-putting. That was what kept narrowing the field down for me to the path where I was being led to the course. Because every, you know, at that inquiry that started as a teenager, I went, oh wow, this is fascinating. Oh, brilliant. Oh, follow this, nothing else, otherwise you don't get in. It's like, oh, right, okay, shut that, move that. Oh, what's this? Oh, wow, fascinating. Wow, this is the only way. Blah, blah, blah. Oh God, you know, and that kept happening. And then with the
Yeah.
miracles, it was like never came across that, to the point where you're going, yeah, go on, look at this, do that, try this, whatever, you know. And as I said to you, when it said what's all encompassing can have no opposite, and that probably took me decades to read that short sentence in the introduction, ironically,
Mhm.
in a way that answered that, what is it? It's like it was like a discomfort from 1993 or prior to that, you know. There it is. Oh yeah, I've read that loads and loads of times. Actually, now I understand. That's the articulation of what I wasn't comfortable with prior to discovering that. So for me, the answers were in A Course in Miracles, but I like to say, oh, you know, I like to almost talk about and find the commonality with someone who isn't a course student without trying. There's no drive to convert anybody to this, is there? It's
No, but it is nice to have conversations with people who are equally as passionate about it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
and it's definitely not for everybody, and that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, I do agree with you in regards to the gentle nature of it. And 12 step is the same way. It's like these are suggestions.
Hmm.
Um, but even in 12 step, like sometimes you'll hear that guilt creep in, like if you don't do this, you will die. You know what I mean? So, people can get very special around A Course in Miracles as well, but it's really gentle. Only the time you take is what, voluntary or whatever that says there.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
you're all going to return, and
Mhm.
many ways to return. And so yeah, it's very gentle. And when they talk about the section on developing trust, you
Hmm.
know we come from these fractured places and spaces and thought systems, so we get to develop that trust. We get to develop it. It's the one characteristic of a good teacher, or of a teacher of God, that can be developed. And when I think about Ernest Holmes, and uh for me, my journey was going from that, you do these things and you don't do these things, or you're going to go to hell, in Catholicism,
Yeah.
to moving into 12 step, where it was like, okay, find a God of your own understanding. And I was like, what? Like, I could fire my old broken down God and get a new God.
Mhm.
And going to Science of Mind, where it was like, you are an extension of this God. And so the God qualities, generosity and kindness and compassion and peace, are all in you. It was a really nice move into Course in Miracles, because but all of that precursor work was necessary.
Sure.
Russell would have been like, what the hell? I mean, a lot of people talk about opening the course and being like, what the hell? And thrown against the wall. I opened it and I was like,
Yeah.
I totally, I get it. It made me upset because I knew I wasn't living it,
Mhm.
but I knew it was the truth. And I was like, this is the real deal. Yeah.
Wow, what amazing conversation. Yeah. I think, I don't know if it's slightly off topic, but it just feels like I feel like this is the way to finish our conversation. I'd just like to share an experience from a couple of weeks ago. You're familiar with Rupert Spira?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I went to see Rupert Spira. Took my wife, went to see him on my own last year, and then I sort of spent the whole year going, "You've got to come and see this guy. You've got to come and see him." And we went together recently, and it was really beautiful meditation. And then he does a little Q&A afterwards, and he told us a little story which has stayed with me. It's really been like quite constant in the week or so afterwards. And he said that the Dalai Lama was speaking to one of his friends who'd been in a concentration camp-esque setup in China for 20 years. And the Dalai Lama said to him, "What was it like?" And the guy said, "Actually, it was, that it was very dangerous." And he goes, "Okay, so what do you mean?" He said, "Well, there was a few times, there was probably like a few times in those 20 years where I almost lost my compassion for my captors."
Mm.
And I've just been like, that's just been stuck with me for the last couple of years, because I think, again, in terms of just saying about coming back to the first line of that strikes you in the introduction, or whatever it might be that you keep returning to, the Course in Miracles. It's like, you know, you retrospectively look back at your life. What was it like? Oh yeah, it was really dangerous. Okay, why? Because, there was a few times I nearly lost compassion for the ego.
That's really good. I wish I could say it was just a few times, but
Yeah,
that's
I
really
think a few billion. We could chuck a few more noughts in there.
exactly.
So, beautiful place to finish with some laughter.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed talking. It's been really
Yeah, thanks
fantastic.
for inviting me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was really great meeting you, and I look forward to our next conversation at Foundation of Inner Peace, just to give them a little plug.
yeah, in a couple of days.
Yeah,
I
the
love the
lab.
foundation. Yeah, I'm not going to gel with that. I don't know how I've ended up stumbling into that meeting, to be honest. I quite like to keep the vibe really low and just sort of miserable. And I'm going to bring some newspapers so we can like read the headlines and just keep it really, to keep a cap on it all.
Yeah, good, good, good. That'll be fun.
Oh shit, that's
Want some judgment and some competition. I think we're gonna be just fine.
excellent. All right, have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You too.
Bye.
God bless.
There we go, done. That was amazing. Lovely.
Awesome. Good,
Yeah,
good, good.
feel nice and light now.
Yeah, what time is it there?
11:45.
Oh, okay. I think it's 4:44 here. Yeah. So
What's on the cards for the rest of the day? Are all the children
four
with
four
you?
four. That's a good
Or
that's a good number. It's
is
the
it an
angel number.
angel number, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Are the kids with you,
Tonight,
or are they out and about, or what?
yeah, I have my one daughter here with her boyfriend, and then his parents are here, and it's my husband's last day of work on the ship. So he drives this ferry boat in the summertime.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'm gonna go take the last voyage with him back and forth, and maybe get some smoked fish, and then hang out and do nothing.
Of yourself?
Yeah. What's
Of
that?
of yourself?
What's of myself?
Of myself, I can do nothing.
Oh, yes. Shh.
Amazing. Have a fantastic time, yeah?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah, thanks so much for making yourself available today. It's brilliant. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thanks for all you do. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
great.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.